In this lesson, we are going to talk about writing the equation of a line from a graph. So we're going to write the equation of the line when we're given a graph, or when we're given a slope and y-intercept, or when we're writing the equation of special lines, which are those horizontal and vertical lines, which have a slope of 0 or an undefined slope. We'll talk about those in a couple of examples. So we're going to start about what it means to have the equation of the line, to write the equation of the line. So anytime you see that, we are talking about writing the equation in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. And so this is where you have to remember that we're going to be substituting for m and for b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples here. Example 1, we're again asked to write the equation of the line, which means y equals mx plus b. It's usually implied that it's in slope-intercept form. And so then remember, we're looking for our m and our b. So what does m stand for? M stands for slope. And what is the slope that we're given in this equation? We're given a slope of 2, so that 2 is going to go in there for m. All right, remember, we've got our y equals and the x, and then I just got to look for what is b. Well, what does b stand for? B stands for y-intercept. And what is the y-intercept that they give us? -3. So you can say plus -3, but to give it in its most simplified form, you've got to take care of this plus and negative, where we're just going to say y equals 2x minus 3. And that's your answer. That's all we're doing. We're taking our slope and our y-intercept, and we're plugging it in for m and b. So why don't you try example 2? Again, we're asked to write the equation of the line, which means y equals mx plus b, where we are substituting m and b. So m stands for what? Slope. What's the slope that they give us? -1. And then b stands for what? The y-intercept. And what's the y-intercept that they give us? 4. So I'm going to plug in the 4 for the b, and it's a positive 4, so I do need to put a plus. I'm bringing down my y equals, whoa, I'm bringing down my y equals and the x. So y equals a -1x plus 4. Again, if we're really going to fully simplify this, I've got to take care of this right here, which we can write as just a negative x. Remember that 1 can usually be just implied. So y equals -x plus 4 is the answer that we're looking for. So let's talk about, remember I said we'd be writing the equations of those special slopes? That means our horizontal and vertical lines. So we're going to look at examples of these types right here. So basically it's super important that if you're talking about a slope of 0, that is your horizontal line. So that is where your graph would have a line like this if your slope is 0. And so it's crossing that y-axis, and so it's going to be a y equals equation, versus if you have a vertical line. That's where your line would look like this, right? This time it's crossing the x-axis, so it's an x equals equation. This is where we say the slope is undefined, okay? So you might want to make a note of that, that for your vertical lines, it will have an undefined slope. If you see that word undefined, then it's going to be an x equals equation. Okay, so let's look at example 3. So example 3 is asking you to write the equation of the line passing through this point, and it has a slope of 0. If it has a slope of 0, is that a horizontal or vertical line? It's a horizontal line, so that means it's going to look like this. So which axis is that going to cross? It's crossing the y-axis, right? It's not touching the x, so there's no x in our equation, but it's crossing the y-axis, so it's going to be a y equals equation. But how do we know what y will equal? Well, let's look at that point. Okay, what is the y-coordinate of that point? It's the 5. So it's kind of like saying, you know, we know this horizontal line is going to pass through the point -2, +5. So then if it crosses there, it's going directly across what is going to be the y-intercept. It's still going to be 5. So you just take your y-coordinate out of your point, and that's your equation. It's a real simple equation. Y equals a number. Okay, again, because our slope was 0. So if you look at example 4, it says write the equation of the line that passes through the point and has an undefined slope. What type of equation did I say this would be if it had an undefined slope? Well, an undefined slope is a vertical line. That's where I asked you to make that note back at the beginning. And so a vertical line, is that crossing the x-axis or the y-axis? It's crossing the x-axis right there. X equals. And so which coordinate, if this is x equals, which coordinate do you think I want to take out of my point? I want to take the x coordinate. Remember, it's always x comma y. So I'm going to take that x coordinate of -3. Boom, there's my equation. X equals -3. So make sure that you've got a note somewhere in there, really easy to read, highlighted, whatever, to make sure you understand undefined slopes are going to be x equals, and zero slopes are going to be y equals. All right, so now let's get to our major objective for today, which is to write the equation in slope-intercept form given a graph. So if we're looking here, it says write the equation of the line in the graph below. So we are going to need, remember, write the equation of the line, we need y equals mx plus b. So what are the two pieces of information we're going to need here? Well, we need our slope and our y-intercept, right? So is that information that I can pull out of the graph? Well, yeah, in order to graph it, we need to know that in the first place, right? So I'm just going to go find my slope and my y-intercept. So let's think about that. How do I find the slope and the y-intercept? Let's start with the y-intercept. I actually always like to start with the y-intercept, which of course is b, because it's one of the easiest points to find. The y-intercept is where the line crosses where? Well, it's a y-intercept. It's where it's crossing the y-axis, right? And this one just happens to be crossing right here. Okay, so what is that y coordinate there? Here's the origin. We're going down 1, which means our y-intercept is a -1. Then we've got to look at our slope. And if you think back, and I know I made a note of it here, slope is how steep your line is, and we've got to remember it is rise over run. Okay, we're talking rise over run. Now let's talk about our rise. Is this actually rising or are we falling if we're going to look between 2 points? Is this line increasing or decreasing? It's decreasing. So that means it's going to be a negative. Okay, then you can pick any 2 points. Really doesn't matter. You can pick any 2 points on this graph. Okay, and then you're going to count the rise and the run between those 2 points. So for example, right here, okay, my rise there would be 2 spaces. Do you see that? And then my run would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. So am I looking at, if I'm talking rise over run, am I talking about 2 over 6 or 6 over 2? 2 over 6. The rise is your vertical movement and the 6 is your horizontal movement, right? And then we've got to make sure that that's fully simplified. So can 2 over 6 simplify? Absolutely. This is going to become a -1 over 3. Notice that's very different from 3. Okay, so our slope is -1/3. Awesome. Our y-intercept is -1. We're just going to go plug those in. So what is my final equation of the line? Y equals -1/3 x minus 1. We just, this time, instead of just being given the slope and y-intercept, we have to go find the slope and y-intercept. So let's try another one. So this one, again, it's asking us to write the equation of the line. So that means y equals mx plus b, where again, what information do we have to find? We have to find m and we have to find b. I always like to start with b. So b stands for the y-intercept. So we've got to go look at where does it cross the y-axis, and it crosses right here. And so that point, if we start at the origin, we are going up 1, 2, so our y-intercept is a +2. How do I find the slope? We want to count rise over run. So I want to pick any 2 points. You can pick any 2 points on the graph. Okay, and I like to draw that little right triangle between them, so I'm just going to go from my y-intercept to the next point here, and I'm going to count those faces. So we're going up 1, 2, 3, over 1. It truly does not matter. You could pick this point and go to this point. That is over 1, 2, 3, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to end up with the same answer when you reduce it. Remember that slope is rise over run. Okay, so let's talk about what is our rise. We're going up, this line is increasing, so it's going to be a positive 3 is my rise, and my run would be 1. And that reduces to just a positive 3. Now, if I picked the other 2 points here with the 3 and the 9, that would be 9 over 3, which again reduces to 3. So it doesn't matter what 2 points you pick, you're going to end up with the same rise over run once you reduce it. So then we just have to plug in our information. So it's going to be y equals, my m was 3, so 3x, and my b was 2, so plus 2. And that is my equation of the line. So let's go back to talking about our special cases. Here I have a horizontal line. So will this be an x equals or y equals equation? This is touching the y-axis right here, and so this is a y equals equation, which means I then just want to pick the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept? Well, it's up 1, 2, 3, so it's going to be y equals 3. In this example, it is a vertical line, so is this going to be an x equals or a y equals equation? This is x equals, and x is going to equal what? It's our x-intercept, so if you count over, x is going to equal -7. And that's it. Let's try some practice problems.